What happens when a living music legend sits down for what's supposed to be an easy, friendly interview, and it suddenly spirals into something so tense the entire room freezes? Stay with me, because this moment took an unexpected turn that left everyone speechless. The studio buzzed with excitement as Elton John stepped onto the set, radiating that unmistakable star power. Dressed in a sparkling, eye-catching outfit that grabbed every light in the room, he greeted the cheering audience with a warm wave and that familiar, charming smile. He looked completely at ease as he settled into his seat, trading laughs with the hosts and complimenting them in return. Everything about the moment felt light, fun, and celebratory. The kind of atmosphere you'd expect when an icon comes to share stories from a legendary career. But then, the energy shifted. The conversation began smoothly. Questions about his farewell tour, his family, and the milestones of his decades in music had him reminiscing, making jokes and drawing laughter from the crowd. It felt like a trip down memory lane, and the audience was loving every second of it. But just when the mood seemed locked into comfort and nostalgia, the topic suddenly changed. And that's when the tension began to creep in. One of the hosts leaned forward slightly, her tone sharper now. She pointed out how outspoken Elton had been about political and social issues and mentioned that some people believed celebrities should stay out of politics altogether. She asked whether he ever worried that speaking so boldly might cross a line with fans who only wanted the music. A hush seemed to fall over the room as Elton paused for a brief moment before answering. The sparkle in his expression softened, replaced with something more serious. He responded calmly but firmly, suggesting that the idea was far too simple. He reminded everyone that artists are still citizens, still human beings living in the same world as everyone else, and that having a platform didn't mean surrendering the right or responsibility to care about what was happening around them. A low murmur rippled through the audience. You could feel it. This was no longer just a polite interview, but instead of easing up, the questioning intensified. The host pushed further, asking whether using his influence to express strong views was fair to the fans who might not agree, implying that it could even be seen as misuse of his fame. That's when you could see a change in him. He straightened up, his voice growing more powerful, not in anger but in conviction. He spoke about authenticity, about fighting for equality and human rights, about refusing to stay silent when people were suffering. To him, that wasn't exploitation. That was courage. The room grew quiet. The other hosts exchanged uneasy glances. One tried to soften the moment, but the exchange had already taken on a life of its own. The question of unity was raised, whether strong words helped or only pushed people further apart. Elton let out a dry, disbelieving laugh, the kind that comes when you're stunned by what you're hearing. He questioned the idea of remaining silent in the face of injustice, asking if he was expected to simply perform while important rights were being stripped away. The host countered, raising her voice slightly now, focusing on whether his approach might be alienating part of his audience. His reply was slow and deliberate. He said his fans had always known exactly who he was, that he had never hidden his truth or apologized for standing up for it. What truly surprised him, he added, was that people seemed more bothered by his speaking out than by the actual problems he was speaking out against. The studio was completely still. No applause, no murmurs, just silence. Every person in the room could feel the weight of the moment. The conversation had crossed into something far deeper than music or fame. It had become about identity, responsibility, and the cost of silence. The host leaned back, folding her arms, suggesting he was becoming overly defensive and that she was only asking the questions that many people were thinking. But his voice, though quieter now, carried even more intensity. He pointed out the contradiction: invited to speak, then questioned for speaking, encouraged to be open, then labeled defensive for defending his beliefs. He paused, removed his glasses for just a second, as if fighting back a wave of memories. When he looked up again, his voice lowered, heavy with emotion and experience. Do you have any idea how many people I've watched suffer? How many I've seen die in silence while others looked away? And in that moment, the entire room realized this was no longer just an interview. It was a reckoning. The tension in the studio was now palpable. Elton's voice cut through the air, steady but searing with emotion. Do you know how many friends I've lost to a disease that nobody wanted to talk about because it was politically inconvenient? I didn't become an activist because it was trendy. I became an activist because people I loved were dying and nobody in power cared. For a split second, the camera caught Joy's expression soften. Just a fleeting hint of understanding. But then she leaned forward, her tone sharp again. I understand that, Elton. Really, I do. But don't you think there's a difference between advocating for important causes and just attacking people you disagree with? Elton's calm frustration snapped into pure anger. Attacking people? Is that what you think I'm doing? When someone's policies hurt vulnerable people, calling that out isn't an attack. It's accountability. Joy didn't relent. She pressed, suggesting that some of his words might come across as over the top, dramatic even. That's when he stood up, his chair screeching against the floor, and the entire audience froze. Over the top? Dramatic? His voice echoed, sharp and commanding. My whole life has been called that. That's who I am. But do you know what's actually dramatic? Children being taken from their parents. People dying because they can't afford health care. Speaking passionately about that, that's just being human. Now Joy rose as well, a rare move in live interviews, signaling the intensity of the clash. Elton, sit down. We're having a conversation here, one of the hosts interjected. No, Elton said firmly. I don't think this is a conversation. I think you brought me here to make a point, to put me in my place, and I'm not playing along. Whoopi tried to regain control. Okay, let's all take a breath. Elton, please sit. Joy, maybe we can approach this differently. But Joy wasn't backing down. I don't need to put anyone in their place. I'm asking questions. If you can't handle them, maybe that says something about your position. The audience gasped audibly, cameras catching the shock on every face. Elton's expression shifted rapidly. Disbelief, anger, hurt, before he cut in, voice sharp as glass. Don't you dare suggest I can't handle questions. I've been questioned my entire life, about my music, my lifestyle, who I love, everything. I've faced criticism from people who wanted me gone, so don't tell me I can't handle questions. Joy snapped back, her voice tense. Then answer the question. Do you think your approach works, or are you just venting? Leaning forward, hands planted firmly on the table, Elton's intensity filled the room. My approach has raised hundreds of millions for people with HIV and AIDS. My voice has helped change laws. My so-called dramatic advocacy has saved lives. The host tried to mediate again, but Joy's gaze never left him. Sometimes your tone, your anger, it turns people off. It makes them stop listening. Elton's response was immediate, fierce. If someone stops caring about human rights because they don't like how I say it, they never cared to begin with. You want me to be polite about injustice? Smile while people suffer? That's not happening. Joy threw her hands up in exasperation. See, this is exactly what I'm talking about. You're so convinced you're right, you won't even consider there might be a better way to communicate your message. Elton's voice dripped with sarcasm. A better way? What's that? Whisper? Say please and thank you while people's rights are being stripped away? Be grateful I can even speak? The audience was frozen, some shifting uncomfortably in their seats, sensing just how intense this exchange had become. You're twisting my words, Joy insisted, matching his volume. I never said that. I'm saying if you approach things with more nuance, more understanding of different perspectives, you could be more effective. Elton laughed bitterly, a sound that carried both disbelief and scorn. Different perspectives? When someone's perspective denies people basic rights, that's not a perspective worth understanding. That's bigotry with better lighting. Joy's challenge lingered in the air, the tension so thick you could feel it pressing down on the entire studio. The audience knew they were witnessing something far beyond an interview. This was a battle of conviction, of principles, of voices unwilling to stay silent. The studio had reached a breaking point. Elton's gaze locked onto Joy, his voice steady but icy. That's convenient, isn't it? Just label everyone who questions you and move on. Joy shot back, "That's not what I said, and you know it." But Elton wasn't backing down. "I'm not pretending all opinions are equally valid when some of them deny people's humanity." Whoopi tried again, her voice firm, trying to mediate. "Let's take this down a notch, both of you. It's getting out of hand." But neither of them heard her. They were fully entrenched in a battle that had nothing to do with politics anymore. This was personal. Joy leaned forward, pointing at him. "You're so used to being praised, so used to being the hero of your own story, that you can't handle anyone challenging you." Elton's eyes narrowed, firing back with precision. "And you're so desperate to be provocative, so desperate for controversy that you'll attack someone actually trying to make a difference just to get ratings." The audience gasped again. This wasn't an interview anymore. This was two strong personalities colliding head-on. Joy's voice went higher, sharper. "I've been doing this for years, Elton. I don't need to manufacture controversy. You walked in here with an attitude." Elton looked genuinely incredulous. "I came here in good faith. I was happy to be here. You're the one who turned this into an interrogation." "That's literally my job," Joy insisted. "If you can't handle that, maybe interviews aren't for you." The tension ratcheted even higher as Elton reached for his microphone, unclipping it from his jacket. The audience murmured nervously. "What are you doing?" Joy asked, though it was obvious. "I'm leaving," Elton said calmly, the quietness making it even more powerful. "I don't have to sit here and be told that caring about people is too dramatic, too much, or wrong." Whoopi stood pleading. "Elton, come on. Don't leave like this. Let's talk." He shook his head, placing the microphone gently on the table. "Whoopi, I love you. But I'm not defending my right to care about people. I've spent my life fighting for that right." Joy crossed her arms. "So you're just going to storm off?" "Very mature." Elton turned to her, voice quiet but sharp. "I'm not storming off. I'm choosing not to participate in whatever this is. There's a difference." Even Sarah spoke up, her voice almost pleading. "Elton, please, we can reset this conversation." He softened slightly, nodding toward her. "Sarah, you're lovely, but this isn't about resetting. This is about respect, and I don't feel respected." Joy scoffed, and that seemed to push Sunny Host, who had been neutral, to intervene. "Joy, maybe we should acknowledge that this got heated." "Stay out of this, Sunny," she snapped. "Elton and I are having a discussion." "No," Elton corrected, buttoning his jacket. "We were having an argument, and now we're done." The cameras rolled, capturing every tense second, while producers gestured frantically in the background. Joy stepped closer. "You can't separate your personal feelings from the issues. Everything is so emotional with you." Elton paused, then exhaled slowly. "Joy, I'm going to say this once, and then I'm leaving. My personal feelings are the issues. When you've held dying friends in your arms, fought for years just to be treated like a human being, used your platform to save lives, it becomes personal. And it should be personal. That it isn't personal for you, that's your problem, not mine." Joy opened her mouth, but he raised a hand. "I'm not finished. You sit in your comfortable chair asking why I'm so passionate, why I'm dramatic, like caring about injustice is a flaw. But I'll tell you this. I'd rather be too passionate than not passionate enough. I'd rather care too much than not care at all. And if that makes me difficult to interview, then so be it. The audience erupted into applause, the tension finally breaking, a moment of raw honesty and conviction that left everyone stunned. The energy in the studio had hit a fever pitch. The audience's applause, spontaneous at first, began to build as some people even stood to their feet. Joy looked around, caught off guard by the reaction, her face showing a mix of surprise and irritation. "Oh, so now we're applauding temper tantrums?" she said to the crowd, and the clapping immediately subsided. Whoopi reached out, trying to calm her. "Joy, stop. Just stop." But Joy shook her off. "No, Whoopi, someone needs to say it. He comes on here, acts like he's above being questioned, and everyone applauds him for it. That's ridiculous." Elton, meanwhile, began walking toward the exit. Security glanced nervously, unsure whether to intervene. "Walking away doesn't make you right," Joy called after him. "It just makes you unable to defend your position." He paused at the edge of the set, turned back, and the look on his face was equal parts disappointment and exhaustion. "Joy, I've been defending my position for 50 years, to people far more challenging than you. I've defended it when it cost me everything. I don't need to prove anything to you or anyone else in this room." Joy muttered under her breath, audible enough for the microphones. "Typical celebrity ego." Sonny intervened sharply. "Joy, that's completely uncalled for." Joy spun around. "Excuse me, you're taking his side?" Sonny stood firm. "I'm not taking anyone's side, but you've been needling him from the start, and now you're surprised he's had enough." The audience murmured, phones coming out, recording every second. This moment was going viral before it even ended. Joy looked at Whoopi. "Are you going to let her talk to me like that?" Whoopi, looking exhausted, replied, "Joy, I think we all need to take a beat. This has gone somewhere it shouldn't have." But Joy was relentless. "I was doing my job, asking tough questions. That's what we do." Sarah finally spoke, her voice shaking slightly. "There's a difference between tough questions and being confrontational. Maybe we crossed a line." Joy glanced around, realizing she was essentially alone. "Unbelievable. I am the bad guy now for doing journalism?" Elton, standing near the exit, spoke one final time, his voice calm but cutting. "Joy, you're not the bad guy for asking questions. You're the bad guy for how you ask them and for refusing to hear the answers." Without waiting for a response, he walked off the set. His footsteps echoed in the sudden, stunned silence. The audience didn't know whether to clap or stay quiet. The hosts looked at each other, unsure how to proceed. Joy sank into her chair. "Well, I guess we know who the diva is," she muttered. Whoopi's voice, sharp and commanding, finally cut through. "Enough! That's enough!" The room fell into an excruciatingly awkward pause. Someone coughed, a phone buzzed, the tension almost unbearable. Whoopi finally addressed the camera. "We're going to take a break. We'll be right back." Behind the scenes, Joy and Sonny were still arguing. Sarah had her head in her hands, and Whoopi looked more frustrated than ever. The camera lingered a moment too long before cutting to commercials, capturing the full chaos of the moment. When the show returned, Elton's chair was empty. Joy tried to compose herself, but the tightness around her eyes betrayed her agitation. Whoopi attempted to smooth things over, discussing passionate discussions and different viewpoints. But viewers knew exactly what they had witnessed. This wasn't a debate. It wasn't a simple argument about politics or advocacy. This was a complete breakdown of an interview, a collision of egos and philosophies, neither willing to yield. And now the questions linger. Was this inevitable? Could it have been avoided if either side had approached things differently? Was Joy too aggressive? Was Elton too defensive? Should Whoopi have intervened sooner? Could anyone have saved this interview? What do you think? Should celebrities be questioned about their activism, or did Joy cross a line? Drop your thoughts in the comments below and make sure you're subscribed, because the fallout from this explosive interview is far from over. Seriously, comment and let us know who you think was in the right. This is one debate that isn't ending anytime soon.